Welcome everybody, those who are joining us this week, those who were previous weeks. So this week, chayei, sara, I want to talk about one pasuk. Last week we spoke about the sara and the parsha. One pasuk that the page in front of you is a brilliant and profound explanation by the Alter Rebbe on this pasuk. And we'll learn a little bit inside based on this text. The pasuk is Avram Zaken Baba Yamin, Hashem Beirach as Avram Bakal. Avram was on in his years after all the dramas and the highs, the lows of the previous parshas. Lech Lecha, Vayera, chayei, sara. We come to a point where the Eibishter tells us Avram Zaken Baba Yamin. Avram lived a long life, and Hashem blessed him with everything because He blessed him with children. Children are everything. So what does Baba Yamin mean? Avram Zaken Baba Yamin. So literally it means Avram was old, and Baba Yamin, he was still engaged in days. He was still involved in daily affairs. That's the literal explanation. But the Zayar and Kabbalah, we use this pasuk as the prototype of everybody's life. Avram Zaken Baba Yamin. Avram lived a long, fruitful, accomplished life, becomes the verse that encapsulates what our lives are supposed to become. We are supposed to be the Avram because Avram is every Jew. Baba Yamin, Zaken Baba Yamin. These three words hold the key. Zaken Baba Yamin literally means old and on in years and in days. The Zayar explains what Baba Yamin means. Baba Yamin, Avraham Zaken was old and accomplished. Baba Yamin, because every day he lived, he utilized to the fullest extent. This becomes the key. Every day was a day. There was no such thing as a day that was irrelevant. And when a day is a day, a year follows from that, and a year that follows turns into a lifetime of accomplishments. The key, desire says, is to have accomplished days. The question that desire leaves us with is, what does it mean to have an accomplished day? Right? That's the missing link. What is an accomplished day? How do we have an accomplished day? Many people will give different answers to this question, depending on their background and their worldview, whether they're secular, they're religious, they're Jewish, or other religions, if they're Westerners. Depending on people's background, but particularly how they view the world, that's how they will answer the question, what is an accomplished day? A day that you started off with a little yoga, you were able to do some exercise, you ate well. What is an accomplished day? That you interacted well with your spouse, with your kids? What is an accomplished day? And Alter Rebbe, because this is really the question of our lives, because the entire life boils down to days. We learned that a couple of weeks ago. We spoke about a day as a year. There's, I believe, a chayei that talks about a summer day and a winter night. Right? There's such an expression, a summer day and a winter night. Our lives, when you break it all down, it's just summer days and winter nights. It's how we spend the hours and the days. And everybody knows the rest just follows from that. The rest flies by. It's every day by day. Because this is such an important question, and the question of our lives, so that's why I say that this is such an important and incredible mimer. With Alter Rebbe, in my humble opinion, takes the entire journey of our lives and the spiritual journey as Yidden, and he compressed it onto one page. You know, you have different. You have Baruch Hashem. We were blessed that in Chassidus we have, I'm sure everybody here knows, Sichos and Amar, and great lengthy discourses and compositions, very complex. This important question of how to live an accomplished life is just one side of a page. That's the whole thing from beginning to end. He put the entire life into it. What is an accomplished day? He talks in it about Torah, learning Torah, performing mitzvahs, davening, having Avos Hashem, fearing the Eibishter, Kriya Shema. He put it all into one minor. And it's the journey of our life. So let's start. Lahavim inyan masha'am razal. I'm going to read inside in this class, more than I did the other classes, to understand what Chazal say. Yafa sha'a achas b'tshuva ma'asim tovim ba'olam hazeh mikol chayei ha'olam haba. There's this very enigmatic statement from Chazal that at the face of it seems to contradict everything we know about life. And that's how Alter Rebbe begins the discussion of life. The sages said, Chazal said, Yafa sha'a achas b'tshuva ma'asim tovim ba'olam hazeh. One moment engaged in correct activities in this world is more valuable than the entire Olam Haba. That's what the sages said. Yafa Shah Achas V'Tshuva Ma'aseh Tevim. One Shah literally is an hour, but Shah means an hour, but it also means a moment. Shah is a time. Any time spent in Tshuva or Ma'aseh Tevim mitzvahs in this world is more valuable than the entire Olam Haba. The reason this flies in the face of everything we know, because as religious people, what we're taught is from when we're kids, that we don't just live for this world, we live for the other world. When they took out a gun and pointed it at the Frierdiker Rebbe's head, they said this has helped many people who were stuck where you're stuck. Many people open up. He said that only works for people that believe in one world and many gods. We have one God and many worlds. So really, I don't care. It doesn't affect me. I'm not affected by that. I'm not afraid. That's what he answered them both. He genuinely wasn't afraid because we know that this world is not where it's at. It's Olam Haba. When people suffer in this world, when people have pain, they know the pain will pass. This world is only temporary. This world is a bridge, a pathway to the world to come. It's in Pirkei Avos. It says that this world is a prasdar. In English, is an anti-chain, right? To the world to come. The Mizritcher Magid. Everybody says over this story about they put different every community. But for this story happened in Mizritcher Magid. Everybody knows. When somebody said, Rebbe, how do you have nothing in your house? Where's your furniture? Where's your china closet? Where's the furniture? Where are the chairs and tables? He said, where's yours? And the person said, what do you mean, where's mine? I'm traveling. He said, I'm also traveling. This world is we're traveling. It's temporary. Who needs anything? This is how we're brought up from when we're children. This is just a body. The main thing is the neshama. This world is just a prasdar. The main thing is Gan Eden. So how does this statement, one moment in this world, in good activities, surpasses all of that? How does it go? So the Alter Rebbe asks, the second one, V'tzarech lahavin. You have to understand this statement, which is also in Pirkei Avos. Haloi tachlis tshuva ma'aseh tovim. The purpose of tshuva ma'aseh tovim, hu shemehem nase levushim l'neshama. Because through mitzvahs and tshuva, we create garments for the soul. Shetuchal lahanais miziv hashchina. Through the garments in which we're enveloped when we do mitzvahs and Torah, those become the garments that we wear so that we can spend time in Gan Eden, being able to enjoy and partake because we have those garments, because we're enveloped, invested in tshuva and mitzvahs. K'maimer Azariah, like the Zohar says, Al Pasuk of Avram Zaken Babayam. This is it. Here he quotes. The Zohar quotes in this week's parsha, fourth one. K'maimer Azariah, the Avram Zaken Babayam. It's an Aramaic, but I'll translate it. Be'inun yoimim Elohim. What does it mean? Babayam, on in his days. With these heavenly days, chulu, etc. And then the Zohar says this: Vai lay. Do you know what the word vai means? Vai, woe, woe to a person. Vai leila hu gavra. Woe is to a person. De gara yoimin leila, who's lacking those spiritual days. De kad ba'ayim la'al bashalei. He's not going to be enclosed in them. Be'inun yaima, with those days. Yaima de pagam, a day that is flawed, a flawed day, a day that we're lacking, a day that we didn't accomplish. Chasr le'ma hulavosha, we're lacking garments. What he quotes from the Zohar is saying that every day is an opportunity to do mitzvahs. Every time we do a mitzvah, where a person is given a set amount of days in this world. When we do mitzvahs on those days, those become the garments with which we can partake of Olam Haba. And the Zohar says, woe is to a person who has days without mitzvahs, because those are forever going to be lacking. When you get to Olam Haba, you will be lacking those garments, and to the extent that you're lacking garments, you will not be able to participate in the Ziv HaShechina in Gan Eden. Because a person can only partake with these garments. Just as you need sunglasses to go outside on a brilliantly sunny day, you can't spend time in Gan Eden. A mortal soul can't spend time in Gan Eden unless they have those garments which shield them, but also enable them to relate to the Shekhinah. And that's what it says in this week's parsha. Avram lived an accomplished life. Every day he had mitzvahs. Every day he had a relationship with Eibishter, which will stand by in his soul when he comes to Olam Haba. And so every Jew needs to be the same. There is no such thing as an extra day, an irrelevant day, a wasted day, a squandered day. Every day we're given to do mitzvahs. Every day is an opportunity. That's the teaching from Avram. The question is how the statement in Pirkei Avos of one moment in this world can be reconciled with that teaching, with this basic Jewish teaching. So, the Alter Rebbe is going to give an explanation. The idea is, what is the Shechina, the radiance of the Shechina Me'olam Haba? It's not the same way that godliness expresses itself in our worlds. Like the pasuk says, the Eibishter animates all life, all creations. The godly animation that's that's vested within our worlds is not perceived and not seen. We don't see godliness in this world. And he gives an example. Just as a person, we don't see our soul. All we see is the life force within our limbs, but we understand that that's not really the essence of our soul. And the proof is, Dr. Rebbe goes on to say, and this is an argument he makes in many places, we understand that Ruchnius, spirituality, and Gashmius occupy different spaces, so to speak. They function differently. When something physical takes up a physical space, spirituality doesn't take up the same space. For example, 2 plus 2 is 4 is an idea. That idea can be in this room. We're here and we understand that 2 plus 2 is 4. 2 plus 2 plus 4 doesn't take up a physical space. It's an intellectual concept. It's not a physical being. The soul is not a physical being. When we move our hands, for example, our hands have a shape. We understand that the soul that's within us doesn't have the shape of our hands. The godliness that's in the world doesn't have the shape of a globe. The life force that's in our hand is not the essence of what our life force is, because our life force doesn't have any shape. He goes on to say, for example, the manifestation of the life force of the soul, in the body, the vitality that's in the body, divided into the different limbs. It's a sure thing. It's not possible that spiritual life, that a life force, the life force doesn't have parts to it. Something spiritual doesn't have a physical form. So he goes on to say that the spiritual life force and the godly force that animates these worlds as well obviously doesn't have a form, and thus what's in this world is not it, and we don't see it. In Gan Eden, it is perceived. The difference between here and Gan Eden is that in Gan Eden it's perceived. Here it's not. Just as we don't see the essence of the soul, we don't see the essence of godliness, in Gan Eden it's revealed. The question is, and this is the question, a great question, how could a neshama, which is a created being, even though we say a neshama is a godly being, but it's obviously a creation. The neshama is within us. It stems from the Eibishter. It has a very lofty godly source. But the neshama is also created. It's not physical. It's not like the other spiritual beings like malachim, but a neshama is created. How could a neshama that's a created being be enveloped within the Shekhinah? When a neshama goes to Olam Haba, so as children, you think of lavish meals and beautiful homes. As we learn more, we understand that the greatest joy of the neshama is to bask in the glory of the Shekhinah. That is an end in and of itself. There is nothing more than that. How could a created being bask in the glory of the Shekhinah? How could we partake of that? Shouldn't you just become extinct? When the Creator is revealed, the creation loses its self. How could it remain a neshama while partaking and being enveloped in the Shekhinah? This is the great question. You know, when the Yidden heard the first 2 dibras, parcha nishmas, and their souls left him, they couldn't withstand such a great revelation. There is a revelation that breaks anything in its place. If the Shekhinah is revealed, how could souls be there? Skip a paragraph. You need to understand. Do you see it? Third paragraph? Straight down the same column. Third paragraph. It starts with va'ata. Indeed. Va'ata tzarech lahaven. You need to understand. Ech tuchal neshama. How could a neshama, shehi b'chinas nivra, which is a creation, yesh v'davar b'fnei atzmai, with its own sense of self, lahasik mohus va'atzmus alikus. How could the created being comprehend the essence of godliness? She'ena b'chinas hasaga v'gvul, which completely transcends any limitation and any comprehension. How could a created being understand and grasp something which transcends creation? How could something created, something that has a self, grasp godliness, which is an abnegation of self? Something can't be itself and its opposite at the same time. If you're a creation, you can't be a creator. If you grasp the concept of self, then you can't truly grasp a suspension of self. We can say the words, but we don't really grasp it. To bask in the glory of the Shekhinah means to be in a place where you're subsumed in nothingness, where there's a complete absence of self. How can you have something created be in that state, which is a state of creation? That's the question. What happens in Gan Eden? How does it work?
Well, what happened with the neshama?
That's the question. What happens with the neshama over there? How do we understand it? So we're used to thinking as the only impediment we have in this world is our bodies. Once you shed the body, there are no impediments, there are no barriers. Alter Rebbe says it's not true. Even a neshama is defined. It's a...
Oh, sorry, I just got it. I didn't know how it worked. Hold on.
You're excused. Just this time. So, the neshama, he says, is also a creation. There's also a self. How is it in the Alter Rebbe's words, how can I partake of the revelation of the Shekhinah? So he answers this question. He says, you have the same question on Moshe Rabbeinu. When the Yidden heard the first two commandments, it says, they dropped dead. There was a mass death. Their souls left them. They wished their miraculously run. But what happened to Moshe Rabbeinu? He went up the mountain for 40 days. And what did he do for 40 days? He said he entered his realm of spirituality. It says for 40 days he didn't eat, he didn't drink, he didn't partake of his physical needs. Lechem abirim, he ate the food of the angels. How is that possible? Same question. We read it all the time, but how is it possible? Moshe Rabbeinu was a physical being. Physicality is an impediment to spirituality, pure spirituality. How could he, in his being, partake of pure spirituality? If you understand that, however he did that, then you can understand what happens in Eden. If you can understand how Moshe Rabbeinu, being a being, was able yet at the same time to transcend himself, to enter a different realm entirely that negated his being, then you can understand how a neshama, which is a creation, can be in Gan Eden while it's an entity to transcend its being, to enter a realm where it's non-existent. But how did he do it? Nonetheless, he was a physical being. He was a creation. He had a mother and father. That's what we as Yidden believe. Unlike other religions, lahavdil, that have different stories how their prophets were created. Moshe Rabbeinu was born of parents. He was a physical being. He was born and he died. In Yiddishkeit, and that's the uniqueness of Yiddishkeit, that it's not a contradiction. A tzaddik can be married and have children, and yet be a tzaddik. In other religions, they don't have that idea. You either live on a mountaintop alone, or you're a regular person. To be a physical person, and spiritually to be on the mountaintop, that they can't comprehend. That's a Jewish idea. So about the last time I learned the greatness of mincha, to be engaged in the world and at the same time connected to age. How could that be? But Alter Rebbe said like this. You look, skip a few lines. The line starts with Atzmos Alikos, about halfway through this paragraph. 10, 11 lines from this paragraph that starts with Atzmos. The line starts with Atzmos Alikos. Do you see it? V'ha'inyan, after the dot. V'ha'inyan. The Hinik, you can understand this based on what it says in the pasuk. V'yavei Moshe b'seicha anad. Moshe Rabbeinu entered a cloud. V'yehi sham arba'im yom arba'im laila. He was there for 40 days and 40 nights. Lechem le'achav. He didn't eat bread. V'haya gufay hagashmi. His physical body. It wasn't on. We don't say he was non-physical. His physical body was nourished, nizan, with spiritual sustenance. As the verse says, he consumed the food of angels. Mamish, he was like an angel. But while he was physical, how is it possible? How could something physical be sustained by something spiritual? Because physicality and spirituality are diametrically opposed. It's opposite concepts. You can't have one and the other together. Ach zahu, inyan ha'anar. The secret to this, the key is the cloud. It says Moshe Rabbeinu entered a cloud. By Matan Torah there was a huge cloud, Arafel. What is this cloud? Dr. Rebbe goes on to say something very interesting idea. He said the cloud was very unique in that it incorporated two elements. The cloud essentially was something extremely spiritual and sublime. But yet, that spirituality was able to be manifested and took on a physical form. It's possible for something spiritual to become physical, and I want to give you an example of that.
We could see it, but we can't touch it, for example.
For example, there are ideas that are very abstract. There are ideas, an abstract idea. 2 + 2 is 4. Has nothing to do with jelly beans. But if you tell a child and you want to teach a math, a child who just starts learning, just starts developing, and you say you have 2 jelly beans and another 2 jelly beans. How many jelly beans do you have? He says you have 4 jelly beans. They don't relate to the pure idea of 2 + 2 is 4. When we say 2 + 2 is 4, it has nothing to do with jelly beans. It's an idea that expresses itself in every physical thing. We have to give it a physical form. So we say 2 jelly beans, 2 cupcakes, 2 beads, etc. Now even 2 + 2 is 4 is a physical idea. But you can go on and on. There are principles, there are logical principles, for example, that can express themselves in many different areas. You have even in Torah, you can have a principle that because of this principle, in Hilchos Shabbos, it will be a certain way you have to prepare your salad in the kitchen. And then there'll be some law about an ox and a cow, an ox gored a cow, something completely unrelated. Somebody damages friend's field. And the principle applies in both areas. Because the principle is not about Shabbos or cooking, and it's not about damaging somebody. It's completely unrelated. But the same principle affects both areas. I want to give you an example of that. Another example. When a person comes to a bezdin, people have a dispute. You go to bezdin, you go to court, you go to bezdin. It's the first step. When they come to bezdin and somebody says, my friend owes me $10,000, doesn't want to pay it back, they go to bezdin. So the dayanin, or the dayan, listens to both sides. He hears what this one says and he hears what that one says. And at the end, the dayan says, you have to give him $10,000. And then the person gives the $10,000. What's happening from the dayan's perspective, the dayan doesn't care about Reuven or Shimon or about the money. The dayan is living in a world of spirituality, of Torah. And in Torah it says, when this and this happens, this and this is the outcome. Whether these two people are here or not here, it's the same halacha and the same situation and the same setting. It exists in the Gemara, on the pages of Shulchan Aruch. He's living in a world of Torah. They ask him, what does Torah say about this case? I'll tell you what Torah says. The two people standing before him, Reuven and Shimon, they're not living in a world of Torah at all. They're living in a world of money. Their question is about money. Right now, they're living in a very physical world. The world of money. Do I have to give him the money or not? And they don't really care about what the Torah says as much as who has to give who the money. Their world is the money, the world of money. You see what I'm saying with this? The same idea can exist in a pure world of Torah, and even if it never happens in a million years. And to these two people, the idea only exists as far as my money and your money, who has to give who the money. And it's the same idea. There was a cloud, and the Alter Rebbe is going to say the same idea. The Eibishter has his desire. There's the will of the Eibishter. When the Eibishter created this world, he had a will. The Creator has a certain will. The Creator transcends this world. His will, his desire transcends this world as well. Whether the creation is here or not, the desire doesn't change. If the Eibishter allowed us to partake in his desire, because his desire that's godly eventually becomes vested within this world and expresses itself in physical stuff like leather, wool, money. So the leather turns into sifritario, tefillin, mezuzahs. The wool turns into tzitzis and talesim. The money turns into tzedakah and mitzvahs. When a person has an esrog, here's another example. When you have an esrog, usually your instinctive feeling, you don't feel like it's a lemon that you paid a lot of money for and never even take care of its right taste. You don't look at it really like a fruit. You see it as a mitzvah, like tefillin, mezuzahs. When you see tefillin, you think it's a piece of leather that you spent a lot of money for your kids on mitzvah. You look at it initially like a mitzvah, like something holy, a sefer Torah. You know, it's like Shabbos. Same idea. People look at Shabbos, they think every day, wow, this Shabbos I could have made money. I could have done this or done that or finished some of my work. It's Shabbos. You don't look at it as part of physical Torah. It's our instinctive feeling towards these moments or objects that we don't see them as regular physical things. We see them as something holy, something separate. The person who picks the esrogim sees how they grow, might think of it as just a fruit. But in our feeling, when you have it in a box, in a case, we don't feel that it's an apple with a bit of water. The Eibishter told us to wave an apple. It's a mitzvah. It's something holy. Shabbos is a different day. It's not a regular day in the week. The Eibishter had his desire. That desire expresses itself in physical things. But those physical objects, are they just physical objects? Or they are a manifestation of God's will? When we tap into these mitzvahs, we're able to connect with his will. His will, that's what the Eibishter desires. That's one with him. Him and his desire, that's one. When we do a mitzvah, the mitzvah itself is physical. But where does the mitzvah take us? It connects us with the essence of the Eibishter, his desire. And that surpasses anything that a neshama has in Gan Eden. You see, this is really the way it works out. Rebbe explains. The greatest connection a created being can have with the Eibishter is in this world. Because in this world you can do mitzvahs, and mitzvahs are the desire of the Eibishter. And nothing is greater than tapping into the Eibishter's desire.
So how do you make peace with people like that?
How do we?
Make peace with people.
I'll get to that in a moment. You know, they say a neshama was once coming down to this world, and another neshama was coming up. They met halfway. They met on the way. Somebody just died. Somebody was being born. And the neshama coming down said to the neshama going up, is it true that you can buy tzitzis for just $10? We heard that you can do a mitzvah. You have these gifts. And the neshama going up said it's true, but for $10 you can get a heart attack. In this world, we're given the gift that we can do mitzvahs. Neshama don't have that. Mitzvahs connect you to the essence of the Eibishter. Mitzvahs are one with the Eibishter because that's the Eibishter's desire. And neshama doesn't have that. Because the Eibishter's desire is one with him, and that surpasses the revelation of the Shekhinah. The desire is one with the Eibishter. The revelation of the Shekhinah is. How could a created being bask in the glory of the Shekhinah? There's only one way. If the created being taps into something so profound, even greater than the revelation of the Shekhinah, it will shield itself with something that can allow it to transcend its own limitations. The only thing like that is mitzvahs in this world. A neshama in Gan Eden can bask in the glory of the Shekhinah. We don't bask in the glory of the Shekhinah. We don't see the Shekhinah. We don't see godliness. In the Beis HaMikdash they did it. The first Beis HaMikdash. We don't see what a neshama sees. But on the other hand, we have something a lot more profound than a neshama. We have the essence. So a neshama in this world, one moment here is a lot greater than Gan Eden. At the same time, in Gan Eden everything is revealed. What you accomplished is revealed. So they have that. They have what's revealed. You can't partake of what's revealed unless you shield yourself. You dress yourself. You envelop yourself in something that will allow you to transcend your own limitations, and that's the mitzvahs. You see, what happened with Moshe Rabbeinu? How did he go up the mountain? He couldn't, because he was a physical being, and a physical being can't be sustained from spirituality. So Moshe Rabbeinu had to enter this cloud. The cloud was physical, but at the core, what was the cloud? It wasn't something physical. It was something that transcended not only Moshe Rabbeinu's physicality. The content of the cloud was something that even transcended this spirituality that sustained it. So entering that cloud gave him an ability, because he transcended himself entirely, he was also able to partake of spirituality. When the child understands about the jelly beans, he doesn't just understand jelly beans, or she doesn't just understand jelly beans. You can take that and eventually, with that, understand the most abstract ideas. People take mathematics and go places with it. It's not jelly beans. Within the jelly beans are profound ideas. This is what a mitzvah is in this world. Nothing is greater than a mitzvah. A moment of mitzvahs in this world transcends olam haba, because you have more than olam haba. Not only do you have more than olam haba, and this is the key, everything you're going to have in olam haba is because of these mitzvahs. Olam haba is where we have a reward. What it says, a prasdar, means that in this world we work, and in olam haba we will be rewarded. We will see the fruits of our labor. The reward is to see the fruits of your labor. But how will you have it? How could you partake in it? Because of what you did in this world. The Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, a very interesting idea. Very radical idea. Many Jews don't understand it. The Alter Rebbe says that what's going to happen when Mashiach comes is dependent, and he uses these words, Ma'aseinu v'avodeseinu, on our actions, on our work, throughout Galus. Many people understand, especially without Chassidus, Mashiach as being disconnected from Galus. Now we're in this state, and then we're going to be in that state. But they have no real inherent connection between them. What the Alter Rebbe explains is one brings the other. One leads into the other. Mitzvahs is the greatest gift we have. Schar mitzvah mitzvah. In the words of Chazal, the reward for a mitzvah is a mitzvah. There's nothing greater than a mitzvah. Because with a mitzvah, you tap into the essence of the Eibishter. When I teach people, I always say this. When you're a kid, I'm not going to tell you the way I do it, but when they're younger, I say, do you walk in puddles? Teenagers, do you still walk? When you see a puddle, do you run through the puddle?
Sometimes it goes on.
I just don't want to make you uncomfortable. Why don't you do it? And why didn't you do it when you were a kid? When you were a kid, you didn't do it because your parents told you not to. You do it. You didn't do it because there was an external force that told you not to do it. There will be a consequence for doing it. When you're an adult, when you mature, ending up in a puddle, that is its own consequence. You don't want to be in a puddle wet and muddy and dirty. It's not because if you get muddy and dirty, your mother will tell you, why do you look like that? Go change, whatever it is. You're not going to get a candy, whatever your mother told you. As a kid, there's always something external that compels us to do or not to do. As an adult, to be an adult means when you realize the consequence of the actions themselves. There's nothing external. It's all within. It's all internal. It's all inherent within it. When you get dirty, that's your own punishment. You embarrass yourself. When you look clean, that's the greatest reward. You feel like $1 million. Not because someone's going to give you a prize. A child, an infantile understanding of Yiddishkeit is the same. We do a mitzvah because if we don't, our mother, so to speak, somebody's going to punish us. Somebody will reward us. It's something external that's unrelated to what we're doing. You go in the puddle, you get punished. You do an avera, you get punished. You do a good thing, you get a reward. A mature, developed understanding is the action is its own consequence. Schar mitzvah mitzvah. The mitzvah itself is the greatest reward. We don't see it in this world. And that's why we're called maminim. We have faith. That's what faith is. All this talk of the other world and these dynamics, it's all on faith. None of us saw it, none of our parents saw it. But this is what we believe as Yidden. And our emunah enables us to tap into this, to understand that just as going in the puddle is its own shame, sinning is it soils us. It's our own undoing. And a mitzvah is the greatest reward in and of itself, not because of something external. And this is what Alter was explaining in this moment. Giving tzedakah, taking a little bit of wool and making tzitzis out of it, that's for men. Leather, mitzvahs, sifrei Torah, etc. They tap into the essence of the Eibishter because this is what the Eibishter desires. Nothing transcends that. That transcends everything else, all of creation. His desire in this world is manifested in physical things. He gave us the gift that we can tap into it. Something Malachim don't have. We were given a gift by Matan Torah. If not for Matan Torah, we would not have this gift. A mitzvah is the most valuable thing in the world. We say every morning in brachas, right after Birchas HaTorah, we then say Yevarechecha, V'samu, and Elu Dvarim. Elu Dvarim, She'en Lahem Shira. Why do we say Elu Dvarim? What's the reason? The only reason? Because you're supposed to, whenever you make a bracha, you're supposed to make a bracha right before you do a mitzvah. When you make chayei, you're supposed to eat the apple right away. You're not supposed to wait. Whenever you make a bracha, you do the mitzvah right away. We make a bracha on learning Torah. You may end up learning sometime later or not at all. So right away we learn something when we say this Mishnah, Elu Dvar. What does it say in that Mishnah of Elu Dvar? A couple of ideas. The first one is there are some mitzvahs that there is no limit to how much you can do it. Certain mitzvahs, you did the mitzvah. For example, you make Kiddush Friday night. You're supposed to make Kiddush on a cup of wine. That is the mitzvah. You did the mitzvah. The second cup of wine you're drinking is not Kiddush. The third cup of wine for sure not. The fourth one you have a problem. It's not Kiddush. It's not a mitzvah. When it comes to tzedakah, you don't say the first one is a mitzvah. The second time isn't. The third time, the fourth time you have a problem. You have some type of cycle. Every time you give tzedakah is a mitzvah. Elu dvarim she'en lahem shir. Hapeah, habikurim. It's leaving the corners in the field for poor people. How big does the corner? Somebody comes. How big does the corner need to be? I want to make sure, Rabbi, that if it's too big, it's not going to be halachically a corner. Ein lahem shir. There's no such thing. You don't measure the corner. If the corner is not a corner, it's half the field. It's still the same mitzvah. Gemilas chasadim. That's one of the things. Then it says something else. Elu dvarim. These are the things. Shahperes, that the fruit we eat in this world. V'hakeren kayemes la'olam haba. There we have it also. The keren remains for the world to come. What does keren mean? Fruit and keren. We said it more. Peres and keren. What does keren mean? Keren literally means principle. For example, in the most literal sense of the Mishnah, because Peah, Bikurim, agricultural, that's what the world was once upon a time. When I buy a field, the cost of the field is the principle of the field. The principle I invested in the field. Eventually, if I have a field that's worth $1,000, I can sell the field and I'll get my $1,000. Besides the $1,000 that the field is worth, every season it grows fruit. There's a side benefit. Sometimes that can be the primary benefit. I have fruit all the time. So I have made a very, very smart investment. I love buying fields because I know, first of all, I hope they will go up in value. I will for sure get my money back. But furthermore, it will feed my family during the entire time I have these investments. Every winter and summer, whatever fruit grow, whatever season vegetables, they will feed. Those are the fruits. In today's time, most people don't invest in farms. People have real estate. It's the same thing. You buy a building. The principle of the building is the value of the building itself. The fruit is what? The monthly incomes, the monthly rentals. That's the fruit. Because that doesn't change. That goes on forever. It's like fruits. It generates. What it generates. Just two examples. It makes this idea of principle and fruit, it's relevant to a lot of areas. For example, when people get married, most people get married very young. It's not such an issue because the boys and the girls, they both don't have any assets. When people get married, if they do have assets, if they already have a house or they already own something, if the woman, a girl gets married and she happens to buy a building, or if it's a second marriage or later in life, it becomes more of an issue. Who do these things belong to? The assets. Later in life, if you have a second marriage, it's always an issue. How do you divide the assets? Generally speaking, I'm generalizing and I'm simplifying. I don't want to go into the details. So let's say the woman had a building. She had a building from somewhere. So while they're married, the husband has a right to the fruits, let's say the monthly rentals. But when their marriage will eventually, if he passes away or they'll get divorced, whatever it is, then the principal is still hers. Or can go to her descendants if she had a family from before. Right? The principal and the fruit. In the Mishnah it says, in this world when we do a mitzvah, there's the fruit and there's the principle. What is the fruit and the principle of every mitzvah? So the principle is Gan Eden. The fruit is in this world. What does that mean? So somebody once did a favor for the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Rebbe Rayatz. And the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote him a very warm, nice letter to thank him. He did something for the Frierdiker Rebbe. He gave him some stuff or he helped him out. And the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote him back a very warm letter. And in the letter he wrote something that happened to the Frierdiker Rebbe's great-great-grandfather, the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe, we know, was imprisoned. But what we don't know as much, and was not as famous when Alter Rebbe was in prison, there were other Chassidim that were also in prison. We celebrated this Kislev, but there were other Chassidim that were also imprisoned. And in fact, there's like a somewhat of a Chassidish Yom in the middle of Hanukkah, the third night, the fifth night. One of the reasons people celebrated is because there were Chassidim that came out of prison at that time. They were also in prison because of the issues that there were there. So there were Chassidim that came out of prison, and they wanted to write the Alter Rebbe as the spiritual father. You can imagine his anguish. The Chassidim were in prison because of Chassidus, because of the issues surrounding Chassidus. It was on his shoulders. And the Chassidim immediately got together to write Alter Rebbe a letter to notify him the great news that Chassidim were released from prison. There was one man there, a very poor person, had an extremely difficult life. So klapped von alle Seiten. He had no mazel. His wife was sick. They had no money. The children, everything that can go wrong was wrong. And he said that, how could we send it in the regular mail? You know, when you send a letter in the regular mail, it takes a few days. How much does a regular letter cost? 50 cents, 60 cents? 40 cents. Let's send it UPS overnight. What is that when you overnight mail?
$13.
$13. $20. I think like $25. Like 25. It's not just a little bit more like a can of Coke, $1 or $2. From 46 cents to $25. It's astronomical. Now think in those times. They also had a system of the express. They had riders go on horses to go deliver something. It was an astronomical, relatively speaking, difference. This man had no money. He had nothing. And he said, how could you send it in the regular mail? It's such a huge deal. Alter Rebbe, sleepless nights. The pain is his. Such a thing overnight. And they said, we're sending, what's in a few days? What's going to be the difference? And he insisted. And he said, I will pay. I don't have anything. I'll give my wife's life there. I'll do whatever it takes. And they said, you can't. That's not right. You can't do that. But at that time, when there were issues between the Chassidim, the elder Chassidim would decide it. Would hear and they had to do it. They heard it out. Alter Rebbe had a brother there as well. And they said they saw his sincerity, this poor man's sincerity, and they agreed that he should do it. He wanted, they let him do it. He did what it took. He wanted, he said, you can't, Alter Rebbe, even an hour earlier to give him the nachas ruach, to give him the pleasure. Time went on. The story happened and time went on. There used to be, the Alter Rebbe established a tzedakah that we have till today, Koil Chabad. And Meshalachim used to go from the Alter Rebbe around all the cities and the towns collecting money. When they came to this city, the Meshalach pulled out a letter that was handwritten by the Alter Rebbe. Everybody got together to a shliach from the Alter Rebbe. Everyone would get together. And he pulled out a letter. He said, I have a message for one of you. This poor man. The Alter Rebbe wrote him a handwritten letter. At that time was unheard of. The Alter Rebbe wrote him a letter. He quoted this Mishnah. He said, these are the mitzvahs, the fruits you have in this world, the principle remains in the world to come. The principle is the mitzvah itself. Schar mitzvah, because the mitzvah itself is the greatest reward, the connection to Eibishter. But that's hidden in this world. It's only revealed in the world to come in Gan Eden. The fruit, however, of the mitzvah, what the mitzvah generates in this world, is different every mitzvah. Every mitzvah, whatever area of the mitzvah was, if you have a farm, whatever fruit, whatever plant, whatever product it is, that's what will grow. If it's real estate, it will be rented. By the mitzvah, the fruit, whatever the mitzvah is, that's what it will generate. Your mitzvah was, your Mesiras Nefesh was to give me nachas ruach, that I should be happy. And the fruit will be that you will have nachas in your life. You will be happy. And the end was, all his problems suddenly miraculously disappeared. One by one, everything worked out. He found a job, he had parnasa, they became healthy, everything in his family worked out. The Frierdiker Rebbe wrote this to the person who was doing something for him. And he writes the story and he finishes off, so will be with you. What you did for me will happen to you. That will be the fruits of the mitzvah. The mitzvah itself is what we have in Gan Eden. The fruits are what we have in this world. Parsha, Bailam is that what we say every morning. These are the fruits. And this is what the Alter Rebbe says over here. How could a neshama partake of the Shekhinah? The answer is very simple. It can't. But we have a gift that supersedes that all. The physical mitzvahs we do in this world, because that's what the Eibishter himself wants. And when we connect to the Eibishter in that way, when we envelop ourselves in his desire, like Moshe Rabbeinu was enveloped in the cloud, when we do the mitzvahs, all our mitzvahs, they become the garments for our souls that enable us to partake of the Shekhinah. That's how a neshama can live. Just to conclude with one more thought on this beautiful discourse. The Alter Rebbe also then talks about Abbas Hashem, Yiras Hashem, learning Torah. This is about mitzvahs, the power of mitzvahs. He really goes through all the fundamentals of Yiddishkeit. But then he has one beautiful thought when he says, when a person davens and they generate a love toward the Eibishter, you can't hold on to that all day. He says the key is Torah. That's why in Shema, right away it goes on to the Dibarta Bani, you should learn Torah. Because when a person learns Torah as well, they connect to the Eibishter. Torah is the Chachma of the Eibishter. And him and his wisdom and his desire is all one. But then the Alter Rebbe says something very interesting. He says when a person is honest with themselves and they sit back and they reflect on their own shortcomings, on their own weaknesses, on their own vulnerabilities, and we know how much we're lacking. We know how great it is, the edifice of Yiddishkeit, and where we really are. When we're honest with ourselves, where are we in the picture? Like everything we talk about is beautiful, but where are we in the picture? And then he says something beautiful. He says if you look at Shema, it talks about Hashem Echad, the oneness of the Eibishter, recognizing that there's no creation but the Eibishter. When you recognize the oneness of the Eibishter in all of creation, that will generate a love towards him. You'll become aware, and that will result in love towards him. You will hold on to that love through learning Torah and mitzvahs. That's what it continues to talk about in Shema. But when you realize your shortcoming and how limited and stuck you are in life, how do you move forward? Look how Shema concludes. Ani Hashem Elokeichem asher tzesi eschem me'eretz Mitzrayim. I am the Lord your God that has taken you out of Egypt. When you reflect on the entire Shema and Avodas Hashem, and you realize that you're stuck in your own Egypt, you're limited, you're small, you're constrained, you're confined, remember, it's the Eibishter that takes us out. You don't do it alone. When you're going to reflect on how weak you are and how great Yiddishkeit is, remember, it's not all about you, it's about the Eibishter. And if you trust in him and you put your faith in him, as long as you're sincere and you try your best, you do mitzvahs because you recognize that that connects you to him. And beyond what you can do, everything beyond that, you put in his hands. Like he took us out of Egypt. We didn't go out alone. He will take you out of your Egypt. Rely on him, and that thought itself will free you up. I'll just read the words inside. It's the left column. It's almost in the bottom, the paragraph that starts with V'hinei, 8 lines before that. 10 lines before that. The line starts Hashem, with the word Hashem. You see that? Hashem Tzil. There's a dot. And then it says V'hinei Ksiv. It says in the end of Shema. Ani Hashem Elokeichem asher tzesi eschem me'eretz Mitzrayim. I'm the Lord your God that took you out of Egypt. Pirush. What does this mean? Shelo yomer ha'adam b'derech shivas. A person should not say to themselves in a lowly manner, with despondency and downness, with melancholy. Ha'ech yagiel ha'medreigas hayichud. How can I ever come to a state of oneness with Torah, with tefillah, and Torah, and davening? We don't completely abstain from evil. We're just human beings. We're not angels. We're not malachim. We're not even tzaddikim. The evil that resides within our hearts is the shleimus. You know what the shleimus means? It's complete. It's whole. It's entirely existent. We haven't removed any of it. This is what you should instill within your heart. Shahashem hu hamaitzi haisem eretz Mitzrayim. It's the Eibishter that removes us from Egypt. Pirush, what does this mean? Shehu mavdil u'mafresh v'nafshay. It's God that will separate and remove within your soul good from evil, and the godly soul from the animal soul. Don't carry the entire weight on your shoulders. Put your trust in the Eibishter. He will enable you to get out of there. As long as you do Torah, that will give you garments. And the key is, every day should be an accomplished day. Avram Zakin Baba Yaman. Ultimately, what makes us who we are, what creates garments for our soul, what will allow us and enable us to connect and bask in the glory of the Eibishter Gan Eden, the days that we keep mitzvahs, every day that we do mitzvahs to the best of our ability, and all the thoughts of our own shortcomings, throw them out. And remember, it's the Eibishter who does the rest. Thank you very much. Next Sunday. Yes?
Just to reiterate, so how did Moshe, being a Basar survive for 40 days?
Because the cloud that he entered was like the mitzvahs that we entered. The cloud was physical. It was the intermediary. Because although it was a physical cloud, it wasn't just physical. The cloud was very much connected to the Eibishter. So he was able to enter a physical dimension, so to speak, that was not really physical. It had both. The cloud it was a true intermediary. It was a little bit creation and a little bit creator.
He became part of Allah.
In the cloud. Because he had that intermediary, he was able to sustain from spirituality.
Because he himself became...
Because he was able to completely enter that cloud, yes.
If you don't mind back to my question, how do we comfort ourselves when people go? We're supposed to be so...
They're basking in the glory of the Shekhinah.
But that Sha'achas is better than all their basking in the glory of the Shekhinah.
In other words, what it means is the Sha'achas is where everything is generated from. And whatever happens there, which is where it's revealed, and the end is the result, is what you generated here. So where do you have it all over there? But where is it generated over here? You see, the way people...
Here's the end goal to get there?
Right, yes. The way people understand it, without this perspective, is it's either here or there. This is temporary, and that's where it happens. What the Alter Rebbe is doing, he's connecting them both. He says, this is where it happens. What you have here is greater than there, because here is where you can generate that. But it's what is generated, you don't see what you generate here. You see it over there. So the neshamas have what they generated in this world. And furthermore, when somebody passed on, and then we give tzedakah, le'ilu nishmas, we learn mishnayos le'ilu nishmas. Someone says kaddish or learns Torah, which is the greatest thing to have people studying Torah le'ilu nishmas. It continues to generate for them. Even though it's us, especially when it's descendants, it goes to there.
So when a person passes on, we really shouldn't be sad. We're sad for ourselves because we don't have that person with us. But for them, we're not sad for them because that's
what we believe.
So we shouldn't really feel sad as that.
You can feel sad because you're human, and the Eibishter created us to be human, and it's a normal, healthy human emotion to feel that way.
So is it not normal not to feel sad?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you're saying everybody is fasting up there?
Really?
Yes.
Everybody. So we know that whoever was next to them that we cared about, right? Depending on their mitzvahs, they're going to have a certain level of fasting. But like, everyone's fasting.
Sometimes descendants, I'm out of time, but I'll just tell you really briefly, our story is brought down in Chazal and Midrashim, that sometimes people have led very sinful lives, etc. But it was their kids that enabled them later to have the Shekhinah. They were like in limbo until their descendants were taught to say Kaddish and to do mitzvahs, to learn Torah, and that helped them get there. Because you still need to generate it over here. There has to be something generated there. But what it says in the Gemara, even wicked people are full of mitzvahs like a pomegranate. How could you live a life without any mitzvahs? But still, sometimes there are averos that are so severe, you need someone to help you. But every Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, every Yom Kippur, we give tzedakah, and we say Yizkar, so that Yom Kippur should work for those neshamas as well.
Thank you. You want to I learned so. There's another pack.
Today, so I'm just gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep the thing here just in case I don't have money by then.
Okay, so $8.
No, I'm giving 5 for each.
I'm sorry, $10. Could write it down if you want to remember easier.
Yeah.